Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty. And today, one I've been looking forward to, I have based it on the cover, which I know you're supposed to do, but, you know, what are you going to do? Sue me? Is Junk Rabbit issue 1. I like the look of this one from the moment I saw it, and unsurprisingly, based on the concept of it, it's hella political. Now, for people who might not want that in comic books, first off, question: what are you reading if you don't like comic politics and stories? I mean, the idea of an apolitical comic book is kind of weird to me. But secondly, yeah, I'm going to get through the politics stuff quickly, because that's what the comic book does for the most part. It top loads a whole bunch of information about what's going on in this world, and these things involve capitalism. I mean, I think they call it like hyper capitalism, but honestly, it's just regular old late stage capitalism as far as I'm concerned. What happens when the economics of capitalism interferes with governance, what happens to hyper super rich people, and how even when income inequality is absolutely vast, there is still small increments of class issues. People basically between middle and working class, or people's ideas of what middle class might be. I remember a long time ago somebody once told me there's no such thing as the middle class, there is the working class, and the working class with a lot of debt. This comic book is all about environmentalism and class divide. Yes, there's a whole bunch of stuff on capitalism in there as well, but for the most part, when you get down to the ground, this is just a class divide issue and environmentalism. Okay, there's some other stuff, but we'll get to that later on. That's the big stuff out of the way. On to the actual comic book. We're going to talk about the artwork first. It's not a big surprise, it's quite often. And it's mainly the colours I'm going to be talking about first, because when we're out in the wasteland where most of the world has dumped all the rubbish and now the homeless and indigenous people live, it is very washed out colouring, almost across the board. The colour, as best I can describe, which they use for most of the big landscape shots, is as if lead could rust. I don't know what their intent is. I don't know what colour palette they had in mind, but for me that also fits really nicely in the story they're telling. It is literally a world of everything wasting away. People do survive there, but survive is not the same as live. And most of the key storytelling seems to involve, if you're talking about a human story, a weird love triangle of two sisters and a guy trying to get out of the hovel kind of life they live in, either by moving slightly further up so they're less covered by refuse, or maybe even get into one of the dome cities. There's also a dome city story. It involves a very well-to-do gentleman who's in charge of this dome city, whose son went on a little bit of poverty tourism and got murdered. Now, poverty tourism is something that's come up a couple of times recently in comic books I've been reading. I think the Punchline Gotham Game issue 1 had an instance of it, and I quite enjoyed seeing it, because it's kind of nice to show that comic book creators seem to be on the right side of history in this one and looking at people who do this kind of thing where they're literally just commodifying misery as being the bad guys. I'm not necessarily saying that that means they deserve to die, no extrajudicial murders on my conscience for this one, but certainly within the confines of comic book, painting them as not very good people is absolutely fine by me. They're not doing anything good, they're not adding anything, and having something terrible happen to them in the pages of comic book is fine by me. However, it does mean that this guy then wants to get revenge for his son, a son that he doesn't even like. Literally on the page he says his son's a waste of skin and he's actually kind of glad he's dead, but he needs to play the part of somebody who needs to be doing something about his son being murdered. And this plays into a whole big power dynamic kind of thing. People in positions of power believe that they need to keep showing that they are worthy of that power. Any signs of weakness, anything where people laugh at them instead of fear them, is considered to be a negative thing. Absolutely true in real world. Ask the woman who got the pie in the face, the massive homophobe, and how quick she lost cachet within homophobic friends. This kind of thing is a real thing, and it's nice to see it come out in a comic book unequivocally. How these two are going to cross over is basically the Junk Rabbit, because it's the Junk Rabbit who killed the guy, and this is a bit of world building, which leads me to one of my bigger criticisms of the comic book, which is the amount of info drop we get. I feel like I didn't need all the information I got given very early on in this comic book. I think there's a little bit too much of tell rather than show. Don't get me wrong, it kind of got me into it quickly, so it's not a criticism that means it's an unenjoyable comic book, but it did make me think I just wanted to, experience the world a little bit more and maybe find this stuff out as I'm going along. Other thing about the art, which I think, again, a minor criticism, but worth pointing out, when we get the shots of the world outside the dome, it is graphic and beautiful and full of detail, and everything kind of invites you to go exploring it more. When I first saw this artwork, mainly the cover, I was thinking Jeff Darrow levels of details, and I'm really quite happy with that. Once you get inside, though, there's certain pages and panels where the detail really drops out, and it becomes very loose and very flat. And at first I was thinking I'm going to criticize this as just being like poor artistic choice, but then you realise most time when that happens is when we're inside the dome, and it's all all very well lit and very brightly coloured, but it's not very interesting. There's a great shot of people just existing under the dome, and you get a sense from context that these people can choose to be whoever they want to be, but all they choose to be is something very boring and normal. Even when they come across like animal ears or snouts or different colours, it still feels like they are going along with what is expected of them. In a world of infinite choice, capitalism presents you the ones that's acceptable to them, and I feel like that is very much what's going on. There's also a little bit out in the waste where somebody creates some glasses, and I feel like that kind of crossover is very useful to look at this story. They are really doing a big thing on class divide and what capitalism can do and how it's limiting choices. I know criticising capitalism and literally reviewing a comic book, which I hope people go and buy, might seem odd, but this is consumerism. It's not capitalism. I'm okay with the difference. I enjoyed it. I certainly got something from it. A little bit flawed, not a perfect comic book, but definitely an enjoyable read, and I hope you enjoy picking it up too. That's it for me for now, though. I'll be back later on with more reviews, as always. Until I see you again, though, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye!